give ice fishing a try. Mound, Minnesota, just follow behind me, said the fishing guide, and for a second, it was unclear exactly what he meant. Because from the edge of Lake Minnetonka, he seemed to be pointing toward the lake itself, which seemed like an unnatural place to drive a rental car for this southerner, even with a 22-inch thick sheet of ice all but ensuring we would not plunge through the surface toward a very cold death. Last year we only got up to about 17 inches, said Dan Jasper, whose company Jasper Guide Services has been doing this full-time for nearly a decade. The year before that we had a warm year and it was 14 inches. I wouldn't be doing what we're doing with 14 inches. More, site of Super Bowl is a death trap for birds. More, Nipplegate revisited, what really happened between Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake? So with the proper frozenness of the lake assured, we indeed drove about a quarter-mile out into the middle of Lake Minnetonka, where a cluster of luxury trailers, simple shacks and pop-up tents gave me a pretty good idea. A bunch of fish were somewhere under there, swimming about 24 feet deep in a comfortable, for them, 39 degrees. This is the deepest part of the bay, so the fish will hold here throughout the winter, Jasper said. It's pretty stable for them. The water temp doesn't change much. Ice fishing, apparently, is something tens of thousands of Minnesotans do during the winter. It has also become a major source of tourism here, as individuals and corporate groups will pay hundreds of dollars per person for the novelty of pulling bluegills, also called panfish or bream down south, out of an ice hole for a couple hours while enjoying comfortable conditions thanks to a gas generator. Super Bowl weekend at Jasper's Fish House, which includes a kitchenette, enough holes in the bottom for 11 people to fish simultaneously and a couple benches to sit or nap, has in fact been booked for months. Ice fishing has evolved significantly over 20 years, said Jasper, who grew up attaching dowel rods to a stick of wood, wrapping the fishing line around that to lower it into the water, then pulling out his catch by cranking it hand over hand. Now it's an industry. Nowadays ice fishing can be quite luxurious, with setups that range from a few $1,000s to something tricked out with $50,000 worth of equipment. In fact, it can be so elaborate, it almost feels like cheating. Jasper's cabin is equipped with a camera that plunges to the bottom of the lake, broadcasting what's underneath on a large flat screen in real time. After he put a wax worm onto my hook, I opened the bail and let it sink to the bottom. Suddenly, there it was on the television to my right, and I could see a half-dozen fish looking at it and reacting to it. Video games have gotten so good that they almost imitate life. Ice fishing has gotten so good it's practically a video game. Instead of waiting to feel a tug on the end of the line, I was watching the fish smell the bait, swim toward it, play with it. Fish like to feed up, often, so put it right above their nose, Jasper instructed. Make the worm act nervous. That one looks pretty aggressive. Put it right above his nose so he can see it. Come on, bud. They're all closing in on you. Then, as one of the bluegills went to grab the bait, I set the hook with an upward whipping motion, reeling it back through the ice hole and into my possession. It was, without question, the most sophisticated fishing experience I've ever had. In a way, that diminished the challenge of it. But at the same time, watching a fish get interested in the bait and all of its movements was fascinating, even if it is a huge advantage for the humans. Cameras are, I think, the best thing you can do during the day, Jasper said. For me, it's just fun to watch the fish and their behavior and how they react to what you do or what you don't do. If there's one problem with the camera, it's that it doesn't work at night. So once it gets dark, Jasper goes to a flasher, a piece of equipment costing several $100s that sends a sonar signal down to the bottom of the lake and identifies the depth of objects by flashing lights, essentially guiding you where to put your bait. Using the flasher felt like more of a test of my skill than the camera, but still, the fish don't have a chance with that much technology on board. At least you know if you're paying up for the experience of ice fishing, you're not going to go home empty-handed. I really think there are more people that ice fish than summer fish here, said Jasper. It might be a little cheaper to get into because you don't have to buy a boat. You don't have to have something like this to ice fish. For $500 you can get a pop-up tent and a heater. If there was one disappointment, it's the lack of variety in the fish. Though we saw a bass and a great northern pike on camera, they never came close enough to bite. Walleye, which is the official state fish and one of the best freshwater species to eat, are more prominent in the northern part of the state than in the lakes around Minneapolis. Still, the bluegills were plentiful, and they kept biting. I caught around 10 of them, and apparently make for a good meal. This trip, however, wasn't to gather food. All the fish were released to the icy waters. Instead, it was about experiencing the sporting tradition of Minnesota, which is cold enough for 5 months out of the year, give or take a few weeks, to ice fish. You've got to do something in the winter, Jasper said. But if you're expecting desolate icy landscapes and a struggle against the elements, you've come to the wrong place. Ice fishing, Super Bowl style at least, couldn't have been more comfortable.